Hello and welcome to Analysing Avatar. I am Dan and I am joined as always by the late airbender himself, Chris Billingham. Whoop.
Holla! I don't know what that is.
Quick disclaimer up top. I am recovering from COVID, so if there's a lot of coughing, sorry. If you want more information about that, because you think it's weird that that's happened to me and I'm not talking about it, we did a Nothing But Static episode where we spent like 5 minutes at the top end chatting about it. So go listen to that. 228, I think it was. I think that's what it was. Nothing But Static 228. I don't remember. I don't remember what we called it. I think we called it Get Apple TV Plus already. Because we spent
a good name.
Because we spent a lot of the episode talking about why you should have Apple TV Plus. I know. We're as surprised as anyone for that to be the case, but it's true.
I think the only thing we talked about more than that was COVID.
Yeah,
so, yeah. All of the thoughts.
We do also got a big Marvel rant towards the end, but that's a different issue.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I find it really difficult to, when you're in the company of colleagues and you can't really, and you feel strongly about a subject, but you can't really, you know what I mean? You just can't you can't show it particularly. I find it really difficult because a few people I know liked Black Widow, and I just struggle with it because I think there are some major flaws in it, more so than any other Marvel film. But yesterday I had that sort of uber polite, it's a good action film. I mean, the villain is completely wasted concept, but really David Harper's great. Shame he's one of the best things alongside Florence Pugh in a film where Black Widow should be the star. Real sort of subtle frustration.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? Because you don't really want to with the casuals, with the nutweeds, as I call them sometimes. The people who just can really very passively enjoy that stuff. They're not wrong.
No, not wrong to like it
in an ideal world, we wouldn't think about these things in the depth that we do and ruin them for ourselves and then moan about them. We would be, in their shoes of just not giving a shit and just enjoying it, taking it in as what it is, which is just frivolous distraction to take up the time until we all inevitably die. That's essentially how they look at those movies, and that's probably the correct viewing. Whereas you and I look at TV movies it's the content of these films matters so much, and it's life and death to us, whether they're good and bad.
I don't know, Dan. I don't think we take things in pop culture and analyze them to the nth degree. Anyway, should we talk about an episode of a mid-noughties cartoon series for 45 minutes to an hour?
Sure. Yeah. Let's over. The episode's only 20 minutes long, but we'll talk about it for a good 40. So, let's
talk about it for double the length of the episode.
Let's talk about. Hey, that ratio is much better than the ratio on Steven University, where the episode of Steven Universe would be about 10 minutes and we'd talk about it for over an hour.
Not at first, when we were at Steven University was only 20 minutes long, or as I like to call it, the golden years.
The golden years, before we got out of hand, before it got away from us. Yeah, that's the reason I warned you guys up top. I was doing so well.
And also, it's just some quick things. Quick points that we probably should mention, even though we're not talking about COVID. One, Dan is feeling better, is getting better. We would not be recording. Dan is in no way being forced to record. We would not be recording were it not Dan insisting he's good to. And that's
I said this on the Nothing But Static, but give me something to look forward to. Being locked in the house. Yeah. Because I have it's different when we were in lockdown last year. We were still able to go out to the shops or for a walk for exercise when we were as a society in a lockdown. But when you've got COVID, obviously that's a no go. We couldn't even open the door to the delivery guys. We had to say can you just leave it on the doorstep? We're isolating, So it's tricky. Not my favorite, but anyway, let's talk about Appa's Lost Days.
Appa's Lost Days.
Lost Days, in the wake of that quite unfortunate sort of situation that's been a bit of a bummer for me the last couple of weeks, let's talk about the happiest episode of Avatar The Last Airbender. Oh no.
Dramatic, isn't it?
For those who don't remember, this is the episode in which we find out essentially what happened to Appa in the time frame that's passed since we last saw him. And a heck of a lot, but obviously that makes sense. It's taking place over a series of weeks, this episode, so that's kind of why it crams so much in. But also, like, a lot of really unfortunate stuff, from the initial kidnapping to he ends up like a circus, like as a tamed animal, or a poorly trained animal in this case. He ends up attacked by a porcupine warthog thing. A boar-cupine is what it's known as on the wiki. I don't know if that's official, but I'll call it a boar-cupine. I think that's fine. So yeah, he's all beaten up and he's hungry and he's being mistreated everywhere, and it's just tragedy after tragedy for this thing. And it all sort of culminates with him meeting Guru Patik, who is an interesting new character we'll talk about a little bit later, I'm sure, who notes that Appa is, still got love inside him, but he's replaced, certain feelings, with he's removed the trust, basically. He's lost his trust with people, which is understandable after all the hell he's been through. And the one, the couple of little moments of kindness he has, like, are all really short-lived. So yeah, Appa has a rough couple of weeks that culminate with him landing in Ba Sing Se, looking for Aang, and being tricked by the guy that runs the Dai Li, who ends up capturing him. So I think that's
you also
it. I think that's the episode.
You've also missed that, like he eats cactuses.
Oh yeah,
he gets stuck in a cave of bees.
Yeah, he has a rough time.
Yeah. So stop moaning about COVID, Dan. Jesus.
I know. I've had it easy.
I've had Appa's few weeks.
I've had it easy compared to Appa. Yeah, that's kind of that'll be my kind of my recap. I'm very curious though, as always, because this is a sort of favourite of mine, but it's always one of those ones that I never, if you say to me ahead of time, like, I'll name some of your favourite Avatar episodes, this one never crops up. But whenever I watch this episode, I'm like, this is a brilliant 20 minutes of television. I'm always surprised again when I watch this one at how good it is. I'm like, oh yeah, this is the one that's going to be all about just what Appa did. I remember this. It kind of fills in the blanks. But then I watch it and I'm always like, oh no, this is really powerfully done, really clever. So I'm a fan of this episode. I really like this one. But it always catches me off guard. But I'm super curious as a new viewer. I mean, you knew it was coming because we do the name of the episode at the previous, in the last one. So you knew this was called Appa's Lost Days. I'm pretty sure you must have guessed what that meant it was. But like, yeah, I'm very curious as to what you thought overall.
I really enjoyed it. Loved it, in fact. I really like episodes like this, like in Lost when they did the other 48 days and, we looked at the other survivors and what they'd been up to, or I can't think of any other examples off the top of my head, but like this notion of here's the missing piece that you didn't see. Well, even like Expose in Lost, an episode that everyone hates, but you and I are oddly fond of.
Yeah.
Because I think there's something hugely satisfying, isn't it, from a kind of a narrative script writing kind of point of view. You're filling in the blanks of the narrative, and you're getting a glimpse of, like, we've had, in this case, we've had 4 or 5 episodes, which at the heart of a lot of them has been this longing and this wondering of where Appa is, and then we get the answer, and we get the answer before the characters get the answer. We know before Aang, we know just how close they were at certain points. So I loved that element of it. There's also I think there's a series of nice kind of mini moments when he's looked after by, I can't remember her name, but the friend of theirs,
Suki.
I thought that stuff, Suki, I thought that was really sweet. Great to see a fight between the 3 girls and Suki and her lot, but we don't resolve that. We don't see where that ends. That's exciting. I loved the moment where Iroh saw him and chose to ignore it and not mention it. Like, I thought that was such a sweet, cool moment. And unless I'm much mistaken, we see some Water Tribe as well. Like,
we do.
At one point.
We do.
And I'm like, who are those? Who are those bastards? So yeah, I really liked it. I thought there was a lot teased. Yeah.
Yeah, there is a lot teased. Where do we even start? So the Water Tribe thing, I'll leave that, and I'll explain who that was at a later point. I think when the show sort of comes back to it, 'cause I don't think the show ever. The show never explicitly comes back to it, but it does, but it doesn't. Like it's weird how they do it. They do it in a very subtle way.
I mean, like I went because I was like, oh, did we just see some Water Tribe people? And I went back and I like paused on that screen and on that dude for quite a while, and like I'm like, well, this has got to be someone. And I mean, this is my first, I think. I haven't done a lot of, like, guessing or theorizing. But dude looks like Sokka. Like, so, is that Sokka? Well, you're not going to tell me. But if I was a betting man, Dan, I'd lay down some pennies that might have been Sokka and Katara's father. Because there was definitely a Sokka vibe about him.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, that's my theorizing, Dan.
I like it. We don't get. It's not really a theorizing show we've discovered as we've reviewed it.
No.
But I'm finding that intriguing that you
and if it weren't, I probably wouldn't have. But because I was just kind of that. Well, I didn't notice it first viewing because I've seen this twice. Because we were due to record, and then I text Dan like, "Good to go," and Dan was like, I've got COVID," and I was like, "Never mind then."
Yeah, literally. I don't even think I'd had my test results back yet, but like Nadia had gotten hers the day before, maybe, and we were both starting to feel quite rough. I can't remember exactly what the situation was, but it was. Yeah, we basically one of these podcasts got completely usurped by the COVID situation.
But both of us, it would have been the world's worst podcast because I was isolating because of a contact thing, not symptoms myself. And like we'd waited up till 1 a.m. for a shopping delivery that then got cancelled, and so I hadn't slept, you hadn't slept.
That's right.
Such a good job we didn't record.
It was before I had any symptoms, before I felt rough at all. But the stress of it had made me not sleep because Nadia had just had hers, and I was waiting for my results, which hadn't come yet, and all this stuff. And like it was just a whole. I remember it was a whole thing, and you text me at like 8 a.m. like ready to go, and I was like, no, I'm not.
I think we'd even had a brief text exchange at like 3 a.m, but not about either of our dramas, just like a random other exchange about something. Because I remember thinking, oh, Dan's going to be tired too then. And yeah. But anyway, so I didn't notice it the first time. But on my second viewing this morning, I was like, is that like the Water Tribe? And the pause happened to land on the guy. And I was like, so I don't think I'd have noticed or been theorizing had I not specifically paused for it. But I was like, he looks a bit like Sokka. And that made me go, oh, well, we've not seen their dad. Maybe
it's a bit of foreshadowing of their dad, who I think they've named at this point. I think they talked about him in the episode where they met Bato.
Oh, what the Godfather?
Yeah, the guy who'd been injured. And the rest of the Water Tribe had sort of moved on and were coming back for him. And a messenger came about where their dad was, and he was going to meet up with their dad, but they were like, no, we're going to stick with the Avatar. That's kind of where we're needed right now, even though we do want to see our dad. That guy was Bato. So Bato, I think, mentioned his name, so I think I can say his name safely. I don't think it's a spoiler. It's Hakoda is their dad. I think he talked about him there. So yeah, so your prediction is that was Hakoda. Essentially.
Yep, that's my prediction.
Another name I can't wait to hear you mispronounce.
I'm just going to call him Daddy.
Daddy, just Daddy. Ooh, no likey. Dad, no likey.
I'm call him the Daddy.
So in terms of like the episode structure, there are very few reprieves in this episode for Appa. It is pretty much. It is a series of unfortunate events, to borrow the title of the book. Like he can't seem to catch a break. This poor bison. Like it just seems to get rougher and rougher. My sort of the two sections that I always like the best are always when people do something nice for him, like whether it's. Suki and the other Kyoshi warriors cleaning him up after his fight with the boar porcupine. I'm not going to get used to saying that because it is still strange. It doesn't quite roll off the tongue as well as I want it to, but there you go. And the section where he meets Guru Patik, who we'll probably come back to in more detail in a bit. But like, as an episode, like you'd think that the way they would do it was like it would be like a bad thing, a good thing, a bad thing, a good thing. It's like bad, bad, bad thing, one good thing, like 10 more really bad things, and then one good thing. Like he has the worst part. Like it's such a depressing episode in many ways structurally, because it is just so weighted to making Appa suffer, which is really not fun to watch because he's such a sweet character. And then to see, like, I mean, it's, so I'd say one of the little reprieves you get isn't actually when someone's nice to him, but is actually when he gets a bit of revenge on the circus owner. We can talk about that circus section because that's probably one of the hardest to watch because obviously there's, circuses are real. This level of animal mistreatment is legit, like, and it's what happens, and like the idea that they've got him there, and like as he escapes, he like knocks out the guy that's been training him, and it's also how wrong that guy is. Like when he says like, your last owner clearly had no idea how to handle you, and it was like, well, Appa didn't act like this for his last owner because his last owner like cared for him and respected him, and you know what I mean? Like they had that relationship, so it's like.
I did enjoy though him getting one up on that dude by just blowing the food into his mouth.
Yes, yeah. Oh yeah. Well, like so the guy refuses to feed Appa, and then Appa's like supping up the like what are they? They look like lettuces, but they're probably the cabbage guy back at it again. My cabbages. But he probably sold a whole bunch of cabbages to the circus. Yeah, so Appa's like sneakily supping them up earlier in it as well. But like it's such mistreatment of Appa, like really intentional mistreatment. Like a lot of Appa's suffering in this episode doesn't come at the hands of humans. A lot of it is like nature just being rough. Like when he eats the cacti, and it's like super sharp and unpleasant. When he's out in the desert and he's lost and he's hungry and thirsty, and he goes into that beehive place and gets chased out. That the fight with the porcupine, like a lot of these aren't his fault. Like these are or like human in suffering at the hands of humans. I mean, his initial kidnap is, and his treatment in the circus absolutely is, but a lot of it is just nature making it really rough for him, and that's also really compelling. It's not just that humans are shitty. Like it's a pretty dangerous world that they inhabit, and particularly the fight with the porcupine. He's shackled. Like he can't even really defend himself properly at that point. It's one of the trivia pieces. I've removed it, I think, but it literally someone in the trivia really felt that Appa was shortchanged in that fight. And there was genuine, I found it here. There's a piece of trivia that literally reads, a battle between Appa and a porcupine under normal circumstances would not have lasted very long, but Appa was tired and his legs were shackled. I'm like, Appa #1 fanboy went into the trivia just to like, my dad can beat up your dad.
There's something very sweet about that.
Somebody really wanted to protect Appa's fighting honor. Yeah. So I for me, like what I think is so good about this episode is while it does do the ups and the downs of this scenario, they do manage to actually weight it quite heavily in the downs in a way that doesn't feel. They're not exploiting my emotions here. They're not like it's not sad stuff happening to try and make me feel something, do you know what I mean? Like it's not emotional manipulation. It's just a really well balanced story that like that shows that he's having they go through all of the ups and downs of Appa's journey, but they do lean into the downs, but not in a way that makes it feel exploitive. It just makes it feel like he just got really unlucky. But by having those one or two moments of reprieve, either when he gets one up on the circus guy by dropping the ring on his head and knocking him out of the tent at the end, or whether it's when somebody actually, shows him kindness, particularly Suki and the other Kyoshi warriors. It's I don't know. It's just really sort of I mean, yeah, I guess I covered it up front. I just said it's balanced, which is probably what I could have done to save myself all of those words. Because yeah, that is, I just feel very strongly that they did it in a way where like it effectively makes me feel something for Appa, but without being exploitative, emotionally manipulative, or leaning just too heavy on the down. Like, because they could have. There's a version of this episode that just has no up at all. It's just all down, 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 sad, bad things happening to Appa one after the other. And I might have felt even more strongly in terms of like, how bad I felt for Appa in the episode, but I don't think it would have had the same effect. I like this approach where it's like, yeah, we're leaning towards him having a rough time, but there are, the world isn't a complete shit show. There are some positives to look at.
And also, like, his main, like, we already like the Koshi warriors, but it does nothing but endear us even more to the Koshi warriors, to Iroh in a way. Like, Iroh inadvertently helps Appa, but that's, I think, more about protecting his grandson and just not really liking the war and liking the violence and stuff. So I think, like, we dislike the people we're meant to dislike, and we like the people we're meant to like, even more so with this. And I think it's just also, not only is there a good balance, but there's also it's almost like the perfect amount of stuff and amount of journey, because there's also a version of this where, he goes straight to Ba Sing Se and gets captured, or he goes on a million tiny adventures and it feels like it's moving too fast, but it's kind of a really good journey where we spend, the montagey bits where he eats the cactus or he goes in the caves with the bees. They're montages because they're supposed to be montages and they suit montages. The scenes with the Koshi warriors, they really take the time to show them slowly approaching him and clearing him up, etc. And there's kind of, the scenes where he goes to the temple is really nicely balanced. It feels like an awful lot of time has gone past without feeling like they're trying to cram in loads of stuff.
Yeah, they do a lot of like referencing to specific moments we've experienced over the last few weeks to give us a context for where they're at, where his story lines up and intersects with the other story we've been told. So
which they didn't need to do. Like, it's really good writing.
It is, isn't it? Because it's like when he's first been captured and Aang is flying around blowing that whistle, we see what Appa does in that moment, which is he tries to escape.
Which is really heartbreaking.
Then we have that moment later on where Appa and Aang have the little flashback. But they seemingly both are thinking about their past and the way they, when they met. And we see that that's roughly when Aang was crossing. It was the night. What was it called? The Serpent's Pass. It was the night after they passed through that, where they sort of camped out at the other end of the Serpent's Pass, which was, shown in the episode where that lady had the baby. So it's like, okay, so at that point, that's what Aang was, and then when we meet the Kyoshi warriors, they literally say to Suki, didn't you just meet the Avatar like the other day? And they're referring to, again, the Serpent's Pass episode. When he passes over Iroh, it's when they're on that boat with Jet. Like, so you can track the timeline of where Appa is and at what times, because they just keep making sure it intersects with the story. And that's genius. Like, that's so clever. And it all fits perfectly. We even finally hear the line, from the guy where he says, put a muzzle on him, which we never heard in the original episode. We just heard, we heard Toph recount that moment, but we never actually saw that moment. So to get that context in that moment. Oh, and also the explanation for why that, the sand device, the sand traveling, what do they call it? Like a sand sailor, I think they call it. In the episode The Desert, when Aang, Sokka, and the gang, god damn it, Toph and Katara are all trucking through the desert, they stumble across that sand sailor, and then they get accused of having stolen it by those sand people, right? But they're just like, well, we just found it. Now we know how it got stuck out there, because it's Appa blows it into the thing when he's trying to escape from them when they've caught him later on. And it's like little details like that. That's pretty incredible. It's very, the
very
way
well
it intersects written. Is genius, because one, it gives the sense of time passing, but two, it also just you're constantly aware of where he is up to in relation to the events we've witnessed from the other side. And the fact that he came so close to intersecting with all these different characters so many times is even more heartbreaking.
Definitely. It really does punch you in the gut, this episode. Yeah, it's really great.
Should we talk a little bit about Suki then and the Kyoshi Warriors and where that leaves them? I think it's one of the cleverer choices of this episode is, this is clearly Appa's story. And, they find him, they look after him, and just as he's sort of a little bit more back to his old self, the Kyoshi Warriors get ambushed by Azula and the girl gang, and they're in a big old fight, and we don't see how that plays out because Appa flies away. And because Appa flies away, we don't see how that story ends up because this is from his perspective.
Yeah, I loved it. Because it's giving us a hint. It shows us, because you say they, for example, capture them. Mm-hmm. You could just have them turn up captured. We wouldn't need to necessarily see that fight and see that moment. The fact that they've weaved it in to this and we get to see that is really great. But it also, importantly, is an action beat for the show. The show has a lot of action scenes in an episode about Appa. You might not expect to get a lot of that. Obviously we have him escaping and stuff and the stuff at the beginning, but a lot of that we've seen from the library episode. Mm-hmm. I loved that choice. And I just love the characterization of the Kyoshi Warriors. We see a lot of Suki, and we've seen a lot of Suki on her own, or Suki interacting with Sokka to get her sort of leading the Warriors was really cool. Because
I don't think we've really... we only see Suki a couple of times now. It feels like we've seen her a lot more, but we have only seen her a couple of times. But you're right. It's the last... the last time we saw her leading the Kyoshi Warriors would have been back on the Kyoshi Island episode, but back in early season 1. What is that? Episode 5? Episode 6? It's been a while, and it is good to be reminded of what Suki does, because the last time we saw her would have been the Serpent's Pass episode, presumably, where she was very much on her own and not with the Kyoshi Warriors at the time, and therefore not in her element. And it is good to be reminded of what it is she does. Outside of that, I think it's a good moment. And of course, what a great excuse! It's amazing how much they cram into this episode. It doesn't feel rushed, because I'm thinking back. There's so much. There's the big flashback, so we get to see Aang, little baby Appa meeting little Aang, and I think that scene
that was very cute.
What an adorable way to do that. Have him reminiscing about it because they've been separated. At that moment where they were told that they were probably gonna, these are mates for life. These are friends for life. These are partners. When you sort of get teamed up with a Sky Bison, and I think it's just the fact that they would both be thinking about that moment is extremely cute.
It was adorable. I was not expecting us to see the dude, the temple dude,
the guru. Yes,
the guru. I was not expecting that at all. When he went there, I was like, oh, this is taking a turn. Cool.
Yeah, so this is another temple down. So in the first series, they immediately visited the Southern Air Temple. It's where Aang had been when he'd run away. It's the one closest to where the Southern Water Tribe is. They went to that in the first couple episodes, and then as they crossed, they went south to north. As the season progressed, when they got north, they visited the Northern Air Temple. That's the one that had been converted by that scientist who was making blimps for the Fire Nation. Do you remember? I don't know if you remember. And they were because there was talk of people that took to the skies there, but it was really that kid in his glider and stuff. They weren't real airbenders.
They were cheating.
Yeah, so that was the Northern Air Temple. So this one, I believe, is the Eastern Air Temple, which actually makes a lot of sense because if I'm remembering this correctly, the Western Air Temple would be either on the other side of or through Fire Nation territory. So you're not, they ain't likely to stumble across that one. But now we've visited all other three. We've visited the North and South in the first season, and now we've visited the Eastern Air Temple, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, it was wicked.
Pretty cool.
So but we've seen that. I thought we'd seen that character before. Then have we not?
No. So Guru Patik is a new introduction. He'd been waiting there for. He says in this episode, he's waiting there for Aang because he had a vision that they would meet. So he's a new addition, but he's an interesting character, isn't he? So another thing this episode does incredibly well is introduce him, because like his patience and sort of wisdom and kindness are extremely well demonstrated in very little screen time. Like, he's the whole situation where Appa shows up and Appa's still quite angry, upset. Appa's still sort of in a very a very twisted up place inside, and the fact that he has that patience to sit there, that whole sequence where every time he leans up, Appa growls at him, and then he leans back down again, and he waits, and it clearly like at least a day and a half go by, and he just patiently lies there until Appa falls asleep, and then he's goes and gets him food, and like I don't know, they just characterize Guru Patik really well.
Do you think? I think it's fine, and I think actually it does track. But in the interest of discussion, do you think it's a bit coincidental for the plot to have him have the "I can feel your energies, I can create a path to him" power?
Yeah. They just about get away with it because of episodes like The Swamp, where we established that everything is kind of connected, especially when it comes to the Avatar and spirits and stuff. Like, the swamp was kind of a metaphor for Aang's own powers, right? Like, so in that episode, The Swamp, it was one tree had spread its roots and vines out to create a swamp, so it was literally all connected. And they used that as a metaphor for Aang's ability to be connected to the universe, because in that episode, he foresaw meeting Toph. And that was him sort of seeking out what he needed, right? So because the show has already done the legwork, does this episode on its own do enough to justify the Guru being like, the strings that connect us all? No, it doesn't. No, they're very lucky. Not lucky. They've been very clever to basically do the legwork ahead of this episode, because otherwise, that would be shit, wouldn't it? Let's be honest. Oh yeah, I'm just gonna touch you, and you're just gonna know where Aang is and go to him. That's insane.
It was a bit convenient, wasn't it?
Right, 100%. I mean, any more or less convenient than the guys that had already built a giant bison containment sled? It was very handy that they already had that. Like, they're like, oh yeah, we've got this bison, we'll take it to these guys to sell it. And the guys have got this like really elaborate sled that is perfectly Appa-sized, with like shackle things that go over the top. And I'm just like, where the hell did you get that on short notice? Like, did they give you a heads up they were going to have a sky bison? How quickly can you woodwork that into existence? Seems like a very complicated device. Seems very, very ideal for transporting an Appa. How many Appas are you transporting? Haven't we made it? Hasn't it been made clear in the show that like Aang and Appa are pretty much the last?
Yeah, that's a very good point. I was thinking as well about like. Well, basically all of Rise of Skywalker. Like, we can heal now, can we? All right. Although with that, I think you can make an argument that the Force is constantly evolving, I guess.
And didn't they very intentionally, like 2 weeks earlier, do it in The Mandalorian, do Baby Yoda doing some healing, so that when it happened there was precedent when it happened in the movie.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Anyway, so I think it's a very, very astute observation. I think in isolation, the answer to that is yes. It is difficult to not see as a weird and very out of nowhere coincidence that he can do that. It doesn't quite work, in isolation. But thankfully, because the show has sort of already put the work in, when it comes up here, it didn't have that problem. But you were correct to observe that though. as an issue.
Do you have any other notes before we hit up the triv?
Yeah. For some reason, I didn't like that this week. Well, let's.
Oh no, well that wasn't me. That was just a.
I know.
That wasn't. Let's triv it up.
So, well, very quickly before we go, let's finish up with Guru Patik, because the one thing I wanted to add about, or chat about, or ask you about with him is any theories as to what it is he wants with Aang. Like he said he had a vision of helping Aang. It was a little bit unclear what exactly he meant by that, and that he'd been waiting at the Eastern Air Temple expecting Aang to show up at some point. And he put the note on Appa, which presumably is now in the hands of the Dai Li. Asking Aang to come to him, presumably. What do you? Is there any thoughts on?
I've given you a theory, Dan. This week. I haven't given a theory in 38 episodes of this podcast, and now I've given one. You're like, give me more theories. You've got to assume something to do with the comet and stuff, haven't you? You got to assume they're going to start looping shit back into that.
Right.
At least that's what I would assume. So some sort of comet-related hijinks is my theory, Dan.
Yeah, fair enough.
That's all I got.
It's as good as any theory. It's as good as any theory. Again, I do like that character a lot. It's amazing how much they make you like that character in such a small amount of time in this episode. It's very well done. Cool. So let's hit up my other notes just in case there's anything we've missed. We've already. I
feel like I disappointed you there with that theory. I feel like you wanted more from me.
No, it occurred to me after I'd asked the question and you read your whole point about the theories. Like, yeah, it's not really. It's not. We've established this isn't really a theorizing show, and that I've probably shot myself in the foot by even asking. That was what that silence was, Chris.
I'll tell you what. I hope it's to do with the comet as well, because I love this Appa plot, but I wanna start linking things back to that, because otherwise I don't want it to be series 3, the final series. Oh yeah, this is a thing. Do you know what I mean? Like that we talked about in series 1, forgot about for series 2. And then to be fair, so there's the comet, but there's also you got to remember as well. There's the comet is kind of their deadline. They need to beat the Fire Nation before then, because the comet will make them all powerful and give them a chance to do that last push. But we've also got the eclipse. Yeah.
They found out about in the library episode, and the reason they're in Ba Sing Se right now is they're trying to get to the Earth King to say, "Hey, this is our moment to attack them. This is when they'll be weakest." So it's still going on. It's just they keep being foiled. It's not like the series is kind of forgotten about it. It's more that the series is focused in on them trying to take advantage of this early, this pre-comet moment when the Fire Nation will be weaker. But yeah, I take your point. What else? Oh yeah, I just wrote the word Sizzle Crisps down, because that's what that guy bought when they were at the Fire Nation circus, and I just thought that was funny. Something weird about the idea of Sizzle Crisps. And also, dickhead, like, he sat there with presumably his kid. The kid reaches to get some of the snacks that he's bought and he just, like, pulls them away. Like, no, I get them. You don't get any. Like, feed the child, man. Like, what are you doing?
Is that the kid who was really nice to Appa?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
There's just a really subtle moment where the kid reaches out for the crisps, these Sizzle Crisps, and he just sort of like pulls them out. No, these are mine. And it's just like, dude, like, feed the damn kid.
Yeah, that's not cool.
I didn't like. Well, I did like, but I didn't like Appa being sort of humiliated in that outfit. Dressed up like a bad show pony. That was deeply unfortunate, and yeah, it was upsetting. It was the show writing it well, because it just made it all feel even more degrading that he was in this ridiculous outfit. But it was also quite upsetting. So there you go.
Yeah, but it was meant to be, wasn't it? I think.
Oh, 100%, 100%. It was like very well designed that way. I think it's also very smart. The first thing they did was show Appa go back to the library once he escaped there. I made that note that, like, him going back straight to the library to find the gang, presumably like following Aang's scent or whatever. Like, I'm not sure exactly how he did it, but I thought that was really neat.
Yeah, the whole episode does an awful lot to show that Appa's deeply intelligent.
Right. Yes, 100%. He's characterized really well here. He's both a very intelligent and a very emotionally intelligent creature. And like, yeah, you certainly get more of a sense of him from this episode, which makes sense. It's obviously an episode dedicated to him. But as he's a creature that can't speak, English, he growls and moans and stuff, but he doesn't actually speak words. It's really, it's difficult to characterize a being like Appa, but they do a really good job here. I thought the moment he thought that little boy in the crowd at the circus was Aang was really sweet and sad as well. Because he was laughing and it reminded him of when Aang laughs.
Yeah, that was very cute.
What else? First view of the Eastern Air Temple. I think that's everything. We've talked about Iroh seeing Appa but not saying anything. One thing I thought about that I wanted to ask you about. I think there's two readings. They come to the same thing, so it doesn't make any difference. But do you think Iroh knew Aang wasn't on Appa? Because my reading of it is he sees Appa in the sky and thinks that's the Avatar, and Zuko wakes up and is like, "What's going on?" He's like, "Nothing." Don't worry about it. The other reading, though, is that he sees Appa without Aang, sans Aang, knows that they've somehow been separated, and his gasp isn't, "Oh, it's the Avatar," it's, "That's the Avatar's Sky Bison alone." And then Zuko's like,
I think,
it comes to the same thing because both ways he's trying to keep Zuko away from the Avatar. So he's not revealing. He's either not revealing he saw the Avatar, or he's not revealing that the Avatar has now been separated from his Sky Bison, and therefore is probably more vulnerable on traveling on foot. But either way, it's him pushing it down and not doing it. But I was curious as to which one you thought it was.
I like the reading of in the second one. I like the notion that Iroh sees that, feels that way, and it kind of almost adds more emotional weight to his decisions, and the second reading I think makes him look more and more like a good guy. I think realistically it's the first reading. It was dark, it was night. How often have we seen shots of them going after Appa where we don't see the gang on top of Appa?
Right, because from beneath it's just Appa.
Yeah, I think it would be likely to be the first, but I like the second one. If it was that, I'd be happy.
Mm. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair. I don't have a particular preference either. I suspect you're right. I suspect it is the simpler reading of I've seen the Avatar. I ain't telling Zuko, not rekindling that fire. I just got him to shut up about restoring his honor. I'm not gonna poke that. I'm not gonna poke that bear.
Also, what can he do in that moment? Do you know what I mean? They're on a boat. They're on a boat. They're not driving. You know what I mean? Other than ruin their hiding by zapping some fire in the sky, there's not much they can do in that moment.
Yeah, but you still feel like Zuko would be all torn up and wow, we'll steal a boat and we'll go after them, or something nutty. So yeah, it's very good.
Yeah.
So let's go. There's not a lot, but we'll do some triv.
I'd love to.
Right. You're not gonna tell me to triv it
up? Sorry. Yeah, you're right. Sorry. Jesus, sorry. Say it again. Give me my lead in again.
Just because I've gotten used to you basically interrupting me with triv it up. So I was just like, no, I actually gave you the space this time, and you decided not to do it.
Sorry. Yeah, give me the lead in again. I'll do it.
Okay. So yeah, you want to
let's triv it up. Carry on.
Yeah, you know what? We also didn't visit Nitpick Corner this week.
No nitpicks. Good app.
No, I will say we do probably have a contender for Nobhead Hall of Fame though, right? The circus guy.
Oh, there's probably a few. Yeah. Yeah. Let's put circus guy in. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Because it's bad enough, capturing animals and doing that, but to be so vindictive and get so much joy from being vindictive with your training of them. Yeah, Nobhead of the Week, Nobhead Hall of Fame, whatever we're calling it. Chuck him in.
He joins the old man who dobbed heroin it from imprisoned.
He's still the worst, man. He's still I think about that out of context of doing this podcast, and I just to myself go, "What a fucking prick."
The other person is Master Paku for being a chauvinist and propping up the patriarchy. And then we've got that fucking earthbending kid. The baby from Return to Amashu, who was, what was his name? Tom Tom.
Still feel bad about that one. but he was obnoxious as fuck.
But yeah, Appa's Lost Days, circus guy added to the Nobhead Hall of Fame. We're nearly 2 seasons in. There's only 4 people on the list. It's not bad. It's not bad going.
Yeah, but it's because we've got that. Because you could almost. Oh, sorry, I hit my mic then. As I got so passionate about this, you could almost argue the circus guy shouldn't count because he is a villain. I think that's the thing. Like, you hear it and you think, oh well, surely any villain, but it's not. A villainous character is a villainous character. We're talking pure knobheads.
Yeah.
And so that's why we've not got so many.
Yeah, but he's abused.
Oh, he's an absolute knobhead.
Yeah, he's a proper knobhead.
Yeah.
He's a villainous character, but he's also a knobhead.
He's also a knobhead. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can be a villain without being a knobhead about it. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Look at Zuko.
Yeah. Exactly.
Is he a villain? Yeah, of course. But he's not been a knobhead about it. Very specific. Knobheadishness is very specific. For those who don't live in the UK. There's a nuance to it.
Yeah, we understand his motives. We understand why. But, bit of a knobhead.
Agreed.
Like, in the way that Draco is a villain, Crab and Goyle, knobheads.
Right. Agreed. Yeah. It's just instinctive, isn't it? I think it's a British thing. I don't think anyone else has this intuitive understanding of who's a knobhead. Little Tom Tom pulling on Momo's ears. Knobhead.
Exactly.
Not letting girls learn how to do waterbending. Knobhead.
Knobhead. Yeah. Right. Trim it up!
On March the 27th, 2007, this episode received a Genesis Award from the Humane Society of the United States in the category of Outstanding Children's Program. A mythic tale about animals held captive for human entertainment that resonates with the way animals are used in circuses today. So basically, they gave it a big old thumbs up for sort of displaying how cruel and not right it is for these incredible creatures to be sort of caged up and dragged around the country. I think, it does a good job of that. I do.
Yeah, absolutely it does. Yeah.
So, I'm glad it got that award. The episode is the longest spanning single episode of the show because it spans about 4 weeks. There's no other episode of the show that takes place over that much time.
Really good trivia. That's like peak trivia. Do you know what I mean?
You like that one? Okay. Yeah. Oh, it's true. It's true.
Something that you wouldn't know, you wouldn't guess, but like a real sort of tidbit, not a behind the scenes thing. Although I like the behind the scenes stuff as well, but just a real someone has worked that out and is presenting that tidbit of information. I like that.
I agree. Appa is one of the very few characters ever to be shown to bleed on the show. There's another example, but it hasn't cropped up yet for us. Okay. So I'm not gonna talk about it. But yeah, there's only 2 examples in the whole thing. So this is one of the very few times another character is shown to bleed. When Appa smells the honey, he enters the cave trying to find it. Has already been revealed by Aang, Appa actually has a big deep fear of caves and usually cannot be convinced to go in them at all. The explanation, the fansplainy response here is that it's likely he only entered because he was motivated by hunger and a desperate need to survive, is how it's phrased here. So there you go. That's the truth. That's all I got.
Nice. There we go. Where can the peeps find us, Dan? Let's take this bad boy home.
Oh, they can. Well, all sorts of places. So we're on Twitter at Dan Doolan, at C Billingham with 2 M's. He changed it, but we've done that on 1,000 podcasts.
Yeah.
You can get us on youtube.com/nothing-but-static-UK if you want to go like and subscribe and all that jazz. That supports us there. Sort of helps get these videos into more people's recommended. So even if you've listened to this on iTunes or whatever, pop over to YouTube, give it a thumbs up. And then YouTube will go, oh, they liked it. I guess we'll recommend this to more people. Also, if you're on a podcast platform of choice, then you've got options there in terms of like you can subscribe and like and do all sorts of things on those. So make sure you whatever platform you're on, there'll be some form of way to tell it that you like the podcast, whether it be stars or hearts or whatever. So yeah, go give us a thumbs up or a review there. Nice reviews go a long way, especially I think on iTunes is my understanding. iTunes really weights it quite heavily towards the reviews. So yeah, give us a nice review on iTunes if you can. Otherwise, you can support us if you feel like doing more than just poking a few buttons on your screen. You want to support us more directly, you can do so with the Patreon. That gives you the opportunity to both ask us questions that we can give you a little shout out, and so we've got one actually came in overnight last night. We'll have to do it on the next episode. We got a listener question. I'll pull it up for the next episode.
Exciting.
So yeah, you can get yourself a little shout out, and we'll answer your question on air. God, that makes it sound like we actually broadcast this. We don't. But the other benefit to being a patron for as little as $1 a month is you get episodes a week early. So if you want to hear next week's episode right now, and you're listening to this on Spotify or iTunes or whatever, get over to the Patreon. $1 a month will get you access to our Patreon, where you can listen to next week's episode and hear that listener question that I just talked about now. Oh, exciting.
And obviously, we're approaching the end of Series 2 of Avatar, so you will, pretty soon, a week early, you'll be hearing us talk about Sandra Bullock. Sandra Bullock. Sandra Bullock. I mean, we can't. Oh, there's no.
So I think we just. Doesn't it? I think we just revealed Chris's feelings on that movie.
Sandra Bullock.
In a movie that is 100%
with an accent. Sandra Bullock comedy. Sorry, all about Steve. Forget it. Not worth it anymore.
Yeah, so once we finish season 2 of Analysing Avatar, we'll take another sort of 10-ish week break like we did last time, and we'll do a series of rewind reviews where we basically go back and review old movies to see if they hold up, usually ones from our childhood. We've done some fun ones in the past. We did the original Space Jam as our first one, and considering A New Legacy has just come out for us where we're recording this, that's you can go back and check that out. We've done like Mouse Hunt and Gremlins and like a bunch of really fun family movies from
Back to the Future, a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah. So like a lot of stuff from the 80s and 90s, with a smattering of 2000s stuff. So yeah, it's we have a lot of fun doing it, and that'll be going up like Avatar a week early. So when the final episode of Analysing Avatar goes up on the YouTube channel, the first episode of Rewind Reviews will already be up. Of the new season of Rewind Reviews will already be up over on the Patreon. So it's a week ahead. It's really we have a really good time recording those, and you'll be able to get them, like I said, a week early. I think that's everything. Oh yeah, of course. Rapho, go support Rapho. Rapho does the key art for the podcast, which is that Appa in front of the sunshot. It's amazing. It's amazing. You can see it. It's a really great piece of art. You can go support Rapho, Instagram.com/Raphodraws, or there's a launchlinks.io/u/Raphodraws, where you can get access to the Tumblr and the Twitter and the YouTube and the Redbubble account, where much of Rapho's art is on things. Want a mug with a bit of Rapho art on it? Right there. For the buy-in. For the buy-in. Want a t-shirt with some Rapho art on it? Right there. For the buy-in. That's not a sentence that makes sense, but I'm going to stick with it. For the buy-in, new catchphrase for Rapho, just for you, Rapho. Your new little marketing slogan for the buy-in.
I want you to become want you to become a salesman. I want you to become someone that rings up people and tries to sell them double glazing. You'd be like, I've got some good windows for the buy-in. They're for the buy-in, people. Like
to be bought by a person for the buy-in.
They are ripe for the buy-in.
Right for the buying. So yeah, I think that's everything. Yeah.
You'd have to hope so, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would hope so, because there's a lot. That was a lot. But yeah, thanks everyone for listening. As always, we appreciate you very much. I mean, that is the biggest way in which you support us, just by having a listen.
Oh yeah, we
the
love
likes and the pokes. They're helpful, and the reviews and the Patreon and all that stuff. We love that stuff. But you know what? Just a little shout out to the people that are passive. Just listen and don't do any of that stuff.
Yeah.
We love you guys too.
Yeah, man. Absolutely, we do.
Oh, Well, there you go. So thanks everyone for listening. I've been Dan Doolan.
I've been Chris Billingham.
And we'll speak to you next week when we sit down to review Lake Laogai.